The death toll in the Christmas Eve attacks in communities within Plateau State has risen to over 160 people. In a series of coordinated attacks, terrorists attacked several villages, killing people and burning houses. Arise correspondent Douglas Francis filed this report.
Plateau State in the last 72 hours has been in the news as unknown gunmen dressed in military uniforms invaded over 20 villages across 3 local government areas in a killing spree, have rendered families both young and old lifeless and making it a black Christmas for the state and the nation. Chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria in Plateau State, Father Polycarp Lubo, says the attacks took place on the eve of Christmas while communities were getting ready for Christmas in the affected communities.
Over 7 people were killed this morning again. There's somebody, a pastor with his wife, 5 completely were killed. So you cannot get the right figure now until it has come to an end that we pray for. Then we get the proper figure. And secondly, we see it as land grabbing too, because we see the kind of killing that is going on. All the surrounding villages within Bokos, so many killings were going, of which the military men and the policemen were overwhelmed.
One peace advocate expresses sadness over the loss of lives and the dwindling fortunes of peaceful coexistence in Plateau State within the past decade.
It's actually very pathetic and saddening that at this time where Nigerians are celebrating, where Christians are celebrating, some people took laws into their hand to kill innocent people. This killing is sad, it's barbaric, and it's senseless. There is no reason why this should have happened at this modern age. The killing was so gruesome that children of 3, 4, 5 months were killed in their sleeps. Women and children were also killed. I'm just coming back from the area where I met a survivor. It has a very serious dimension: 1, political; 2, religion; 3, criminality, and it also has some international dimensions. Because some of the criminals who were heard speaking, they spoke some foreign languages that I would not want to mention on air, because it actually has some diplomatic issues. I will not want to go into that, but it's actually very sad that this attack is coming from very high places. It was carefully orchestrated and planned to destroy Plateau communities.
Some of the survivors of the attacks have been taken to hospitals in Mangu and Bukos for treatment, while more security personnel have been deployed to the affected communities.
Horrific footage there from Plateau State, and indeed Black Christmas, not just for the state but for Nigeria as a whole. Rufai, your take on this story?
At first, my heart goes out to the lives lost in Plateau State. My heart goes out to the families displaced. My heart goes out to those that are having a Black Christmas. Very sad one. May God heal them. I watched on television the mass burial and my heart bled. But government has failed again. This government is an indictment on you. And I know why I said that. In the course of the year, I spoke to a journalist out of Plateau, and she gave me a detailed account of what transpired in Mangu when the Mangu attack happened then. She also talked about what transpired before now in Bokos. She talked about the political slant to it. She talked about the ethnic slant. And she also talked about the fact that the reason why this raged on is the fact that the state constantly failed. Don't get me wrong. My heart goes out to the military officers fighting for the safety of the country, because while we're celebrating Christmas, they were on the battlefront. But also there's a consistent failure by the political class, and that's why this has continued. And I think the political class should have a rethink. On my sickbed yesterday, I saw your stellar interview with Governor Mutwang, and I saw helplessness. That was the same helplessness Governor Mutwang had when he just came in. And there was a crisis. I think it was Mangu then. The political class should check themselves as regards what is happening in Jos. What is all of this for? Because everything goes back to political leadership in this country. Today we are disputing the death toll. That is sad. We just act like human beings and human lives are like statistics. We're even lying on the death of people. That's how anal our country has become. We're lying about the death of people. Some are saying, no, the death toll is less. Do you think if you mitigate the death toll, it will ease away the pain? Is that what you feel? Why can't you just have a holistic, verifiable death toll that everybody can agree on? But we can't. Because in a time of conflict and war, people still want to pay politics with the lives of people. Like Peter Obi said, even in some war-torn zones, we are not seeing a massacre like this. This is like a replica of what happened in Israel and Gaza on Christmas Day in Nigeria. President Tinubu, I salute you for what you said. But please, do not just make it words. We need action. We're sick and tired of, oh, I'm angry, go and fish out the people. You are the commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic. You should bring a stop to what is happening in Jos. Both the political angle, the ethno-religious angle, and the economic angle. And please, enough of the rhetoric, because this is an indictment on your government. Merry Christmas, Mr. President.
Well, yesterday, the Nigeria Governors Forum, led by their chairman, Governor Abdurrahman Abdulrazak of Kwara State, paid a Christmas visit to President Tinubu, who arrived in Lagos on Thursday for Christmas and New Year holidays. They visited him at the Lagos Marina House, where he received them. Most of the governors were in attendance, including the governors of Katsina, Kaduna, Plateau, Ogun, Lagos, Edo, Benue, Bayelsa, all of them. They went to visit the president. And one of the issues that they discussed at that meeting, as reported, was the killing in Plateau. The president's key message to them is that, look, the way it is in the country today, both the federal government and the subnationals will have to work together to address the challenge of insecurity. That is a collective responsibility. The same message that we keep getting, that even communities and individuals will have to get involved. Clearly, what has happened in Plateau State, in the three local governments of Bokos, Mangu, and Bakin-Ladi, is, as the governor of the state himself put it, barbaric, brutal, unjustifiable, heinous, as the president put it. And the president has directed the security agencies to track down the killers, the terrorists, the criminals who inflicted terror for 2 days on over 28 communities, killing people, burning down houses, turning people into refugees in their own communities, and yet the Nigerian state was ineffectual. The same way it has been since as far back as maybe 2009. And yet these killings continue on the plateau. And the Nigerian state is unable to address the problem. A number of issues. Number one, we've seen the usual noise making from the presidency saying, oh, track down the killers and deal with them, bring them to justice, the usual, template that, the villa uses to address situations like this. Then, of course, the usual thing, can condemn killings and calls for unity and reconciliation. And Northern Senators Forum bemoaned killings on the plateau. Amnesty International decries. Nigerian Governors Forum condemns. Northern Governors protest. That's the kind of headline you see all over the place. Very familiar template in situations like this. But what we know is that people died, property and lives were destroyed. which takes me to the second issue, which is that we don't seem to even know how many people died. We asked the governor on this program yesterday, do you have the exact casualty figures? He said no, he had no idea that they were still collating the figures, but that he could just assure us that a little over 100 people died. Look at the Americans. 3 persons were attacked near Iraq. 3, just 3. America responded immediately because even one American life is important. And that's in a war zone. But here, inside Nigeria, people will die, we will be speculating. Initially, the paper said 113. Later, initially the governor said 50. Then the newspapers reported 113. Then the governor said, well, a little over 100. These are human beings, though. Then the Guardian UK reported 150. Daily Trust in Nigeria reported 145. Now, we seem to have lost our common humanity. Human lives don't mean anything to us. That's why we don't even know the exact number of persons that have been affected. Nobody even knows the number of houses that have been burnt now. The fear, however, is that it could happen again. So there is perhaps a need for the rethinking of strategy. We keep hearing kinetic, non-kinetic. Look, and then they say, oh, the military did not respond, the police did not respond. Maybe we have to rethink the strategy for combating this. And this would have to involve the local communities. It will have to involve the people themselves, who may have better ideas than government. Now, Petrus Bogu, who is the leader of the president of the Middle Belt Forum, has been quoted as saying that, look, this problem may never be solved because the Nigerian state is not ready to do anything about it. He said that, look, they know the people who cause these problems. They know where they live. They know where they run to. But the state will just wait and do nothing. And it's on the basis of that that the president of the Middle Belt Forum, is asking for state police, that the governors are helpless. But state police is another subject on its own. Even if the governors have state police, other fears have been, expressed. But what we have seen is that depending on Abuja to solve problem in Menyanga village in Plateau State may not be the issue. Another point that Petrus Pogu made is about this, what he called ethnic cleansing. He said that the tragedy on the plateau is occurring perpetually, perennially, because the people on the plateau, as he put it, that are not part of the caliphate, that they are victims of ethnic cleansing, whether they are in southern Kaduna or they are on the plateau. And that is the big fear, which the governor tried to downplay yesterday when he said this was not about ethnicity, not about religion, but that it's just pure criminality that we're dealing with. Yes, okay, his statement statesmanly, because as governor, he's not supposed to escalate tension. But there are persons within those communities who think that this is a case of ethnic cleansing and that there is more to it rather than just sheer criminality. The Nigerian state, however, will be able to reassure the people if it lives up to its responsibility under the Constitution, which, as we pointed out yesterday, is basically about ensuring the security and welfare of the people. And to think that this has happened during Christmas time, a time that people are supposed to share joy, gifts, and happiness, just shows how our humanity has been debased, has been devalued, and the state appears to be helpless.
Well, totally said. I'll just go back again to some of the statements made by the governor of Plateau State, because that, of course, being the #1 citizen in the state and the one who has oversight, must be taken into account. One of the things he had said, which I must emphasize this morning, is that the reason why the crisis has lingered in Plateau State over the years is due or down to a lack of political will to take action. He also mentioned the fact that no arrests, at least notably, have been made with regards to the number of attacks that have been on these communities in Plateau State over the years. And that if a president or if a leader is willing and ready and there's political will, this issue can be solved. We cannot say that this insecurity in Plateau State defies all interventions or governments across, from about 2009, even right from the time of President Goodluck Jonathan to former President Muhammadu Buhari, even long before that. So it then brings to mind, what exactly is it with Plateau State? Despite the operations that have taken place in Plateau State, Operation Safe Haven, the question was around, where were they when the criminals had free rein, the terrorists terrorized the people of those three communities for 2 days? And there was no response. They were burning houses, slaughtering people in their homes, and there was no response or counter-response in 2 days. Was it a communication problem? Was it an intelligence problem? So there are many questions that ought to be asked. So beyond the president calling for a thorough investigation, and I believe that's the right body language, right communication. However, previous presidents have also called for, for investigation into killings in Plateau State. What will be different about this one? And I believe that one of the key legacies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would be to deal decisively with insecurity in the Middle Belt and in northern Nigeria. It is very important because as part of his 8th-point agenda, he had talked about being able to arrest security issues or insecurity in this part of the country. I believe that there should be daily reports, not just from the governor, but also from security agencies. What failed? The governor said that the attacks were unprovoked, so I can understand, they didn't see this coming. The same thing happened, at least in Israel, with the Hamas attack in October. If you look at the two attacks side by side, despite the scale of the former being much higher than the scale in terms of the number of casualties in Nigeria, the fact that it is internal terrorism is a big deal. The fact that over 160 Nigerians were killed in their own homes unprovoked is a big deal. The fact that there were coordinated attacks, so planned, and the scale of the attacks is terrible, is a big deal and must be investigated. A lot of people criticize Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for how extreme his response has been, and I know that this is not exactly in terms of the comparison, but a few things to draw out from there. We criticize the fact that in his response, very extreme. But what he was demonstrating to Hamas and the terrorists was that one Israeli life, or the fact that you come into our territory and kill our people, we will finish you. That should be the body language of the Nigerian government. And that should be the response of the Nigerian government. This will not happen on our own turf. We will not accept this. And so this is what the best thing we can do for the people who have unfortunately lost their lives. We see the tears, we see the devastation from footage. Some of those footage are not you can't bear to watch them. That's how horrific they are. But the best way to honor the lives of those who have been lost, not just in this Christmas Day attack, but the attacks over the years, is to bring the killers to book. Let us not begin to give amnesty to these people and treat them with kids' gloves. We must deal decisively with terrorists and call it what it is. Not just criminals, but this is an act of terrorism. And I believe that indeed we must take actions against. It's a developing story. I believe that the numbers in terms of the deaths will be decided, once they have been able to ascertain following investigations. Unfortunately, this happened over a period of time. Over 10,000 people are said to have been displaced. The president has promised or has ordered that some form of relief materials are sent to them and they are rehabilitated. I think this is very important because a number of them, look at the screen now, the devastation. Some people haven't even come to grasp with the extent of the damage and the extent of the harm that this has caused them. So I believe that in terms of counseling, rehabilitation, rehousing these people, really important, especially, and this is where the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs will come in as well to provide relief for these people. We look forward to more updates from Plateau State, and hopefully we will not see this kind of horrific incident in Nigeria again. Well, still on not so cheering news, a former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Umar Naba, has reportedly died in Abuja. According to reports, the former lawmaker died in an Abuja hospital following a brief illness. Gali Umar Naba was the Speaker of the House of Representatives as a member of the PDP from 1993 to 2003. In 2014, he defected from the PDP to the APC and remained a political and public commentator until his death. Well, just moving on to another sad news, this time a former Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Yeah. Very sad one. We all remember, Gali Umar Nahaba, and we all remember the story of his political ascendancy and his political slump, Pretty much we all remember the breakbacks with President Olusegun Obasanjo, but today is not the day to say all of that. Today is to say God rest his soul, a very prolific politician out of Kano State. In recent times, yes, he's been airing his thoughts and opinion on national developmental issues and all of that. I think we even had him here. If I remember, Ngozi Alegbo did interview him a couple of years back, if my memory serves me right. And, he's battled his own, challenges in a couple of days. But all we can just say is God rest his soul. He was Speaker of the National Assembly. He had his own political struggles. He was condemned at a point to political oblivion because he tried to try the masters at the game. All I can say, this is not the time to, say all this political travel, but this just time to say God rest his soul. Very sad one. Died at a very young age of 65. Extremely very young in a day like this where, you have modern medicine and you have things effective to be able to tackle the challenges of health. But rest his soul.
Umar Gali Nahaba, 27th September 1958 to 27th December 1965. May well be said of him that he lived a life of impact and influence, and he made his mark. We commiserate with the people of Kano and all who were privileged to have known him or worked with him. Now, in 1999, he was elected to represent Kano Municipal Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives. And, at the time, he wanted to be Speaker, but the lot fell on Salisu Buhari, whose tenure as a Speaker was short-lived. And then, of course, Gali Nahaba became Speaker of the House of Representatives, fourth Speaker of Nigeria's Federal House of Representatives. And in that capacity, he distinguished himself as one Speaker who insisted on the independence of the legislature and who insisted on the separation of powers and who was able to stand up, provide the leadership to stand up to the executive. It was under Gali Nahaba's watch that you had the House of Representatives overturning a veto by a president as powerful as President Obasanjo. And in fact, in August 2002, Gali Nahaba led the House to pass a resolution asking President Obasanjo to either resign or face impeachment. That was the kind of robust leadership that he provided at the time. In addition, of course, to robust legislative action with the leadership of his good self, Chibudom Nwuche, who was a deputy speaker at the time. Then, of course, he went on to play a big role within the continent. He was president of the African Parliamentary Union. Later, he was president of the Commonwealth Association of Lawmakers. He was an active member of the International Parliamentary Union. So it wasn't just at home, also internationally. However, in 2003, he lost re-election. So he wasn't re-elected, but he then continued to remain relevant. He has started his politics as a member of the People's Redemption Party, PRP. He moved to the PDP, and then, of course, later, as the introduction pointed out, he joined the All Progressives Congress. Apart from politics, he was also a businessman. He was into printing, importation and exportation, and of course, many will remember him as an astute politician. He having studied political science at the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. So let's close by saying that, well, we again commiserate with his family, with the people of Kano State, and everyone who was privileged to know him. Well, he died young, 65, is considerably young, and we're told that this was after a brief illness. But as we were saying on Christmas Day, it's not the age of Methuselah that matters, it's the impact that every individual brings to this long struggle cut life.
Absolutely. A life of impact, despite it being 65 years on earth, but one that Nigeria and Nigerians will not forget.